6 a.m. The city hasn't decided to wake up yet. Rain from last night still slicks the pavement, catching the orange glow of a streetlight that should have been replaced years ago. And rising out of the dark, 14 stories of concrete, silent, massive. A tower that doesn't ask to be noticed because nobody's looked at it in a long time. But look closer. 9th floor, one window burning yellow against all that gray. Go through it. Inside, a mother we'll call Jess moves through the kitchen like she's done 10,000 times. No lights but the stove clock, no sound but the radiator ticking and the coffee maker breathing. Down the hall, 2 kids share one bedroom, tangled in blankets, still dreaming. On the table, a stack of bills sits under a coffee mug like evidence at a trial. She already knows the verdict. Beyond her front door, a hallway lit by one flickering tube, humming like it's about to give up, then a stairwell 9 floors down because the elevator died weeks ago. Again, her footsteps echo off concrete that has heard 50 years of footsteps just like them. Now pull back through the door, down the hallway, out through the brick, up past floor after floor of sleeping families, until the whole tower stands black against the first light of morning. Then keep going, because it's not one tower. It's dozens, hundreds, thousands scattered across every major city in America, all built from the same blueprint, all carrying the same name, whispered like a warning. The projects, but here's the truth buried in the foundation. None of this was an accident. Every slab was poured on purpose. Every hallway drawn by hand and sealed into the concrete was a promise signed by the most powerful government on earth. Safe housing, affordable housing, a place to raise your kids when the market slammed the door in your face. That was the deal. So tonight we're going back through that 9th floor window, down into the budgets, the blueprints, and the boardrooms to find out what that promise actually delivered and who let it rot. Hey, it's CJ, the creator of this channel. Making YouTube videos has been easier than it is today thanks to topic2video.com. I created this software from scratch and used it to build this channel and monetize the video you're watching right now. If $30 to $50 per day in YouTube ad revenue sounds appealing to you, topic2video.com can generate the videos to help you get there. Try it for free at topic2video.com today. Back to the video. Let's define the term simply. Public housing is housing owned by the government and rented out to families who don't earn much, usually at a rent tied to how little they make. The idea is that no matter how low your paycheck is, you still have a roof, 4 walls, and a door that locks. In an ordinary apartment, the landlord charges whatever the market will pay. If rent is more than you can afford, you're out. Public housing was designed to break that math. If you only made a little, your rent stayed small on purpose, and the government covered the gap. So the promise wasn't charity in the way people sometimes imagine. It was closer to a floor under your feet, a guarantee that a low wage wouldn't automatically mean no home at all. So why did the government step in at all? Because of a simple, brutal gap between what people earned and what housing cost. For millions of working families, the jobs available paid low wages, enough to survive, not enough to comfortably rent a decent, safe place in the private market. Researchers who study the low-wage labor market point out that these jobs often keep workers stuck, making it hard to climb toward real self-sufficiency. When wages sit low and rents keep climbing, the two never meet in the middle. Private builders had little reason to build cheap apartments because there's more profit in building for people who can pay more. That left a hole in the market. Lots of families needing affordable homes and almost nobody building them. Public housing was the government's attempt to fill that hole directly. It would build the apartments the market wouldn't and rent them at a price a low wage could actually cover. For a while, for a lot of families, the deal worked. The rent was low. The apartment was new. It was a real step up from crowded, run-down places people had left behind. But now, come back inside with Jess, because the daily reality is where the whole story lives. Start with space. These buildings were built to pack a lot of people into a small footprint, which means density, a lot of families stacked close together, sharing hallways, stairwells, and thin walls. That closeness cuts both ways. On a good day, it means your neighbor watches your kids, lends you eggs, knows your name. On a hard day, it means every problem in the building becomes your problem too. Then there's maintenance. When the elevator breaks in a 14-story building, an old man on the top floor is trapped by the stairs. When the heat fails in January, a family piles into one bed for warmth. Underneath all of it is a quiet pressure that never really turns off. Scarcity. Not enough money, not enough space, not enough repairs, not enough time. Just budgets to the dollar. A surprise expense, a broken shoe, a bus fare, a school fee isn't an annoyance. It's a crisis. That constant low-level stress shapes everything, from how well kids sleep to how much energy adults have left at the end of the day. And yet, walk these hallways and you also find something the numbers never capture. Resilience, cookouts in the courtyard, kids raised by a whole floor of adults. People who refuse to let a hard place make them hard. The projects were never just concrete and broken elevators. They were homes full of routines and birthdays and neighbors who show up. So where did the promise break down? Not in the blueprint, in the budget. Building the apartment was only step one. Keeping it livable for the next 50 years costs money every single year. New roofs, new boilers, new elevators, paint, plumbing, staff, and that ongoing money is exactly what got squeezed. Public housing was built cheap to fit tight budgets, and then it was often starved of the maintenance funding it needed to survive. Check this out. An underfunded building doesn't fail all at once. It fails slowly. One broken elevator becomes two, a leak becomes mold, a cracked window becomes a boarded one. Multiply that across a whole complex over decades, and the safe, stable home slowly turns into the thing people were told to fear. That's crazy. The same building sold as the answer to bad housing sometimes became bad housing themselves. Not because the idea was rotten, but because nobody paid to keep it up. The economics made a bad situation worse in a second way. Because rent was tied to income, families who started earning more often moved out, which was the goal in a sense. But as the households with a little more money left, the ones who remained were the very poorest, and the rent money coming in shrank right when repair needs were growing. Less rent, more decay. Add the fact that many projects were built in isolated clusters, cut off from good jobs and good transit, and you get families concentrated in one place with the fewest resources and the longest odds. None of this was caused by the people living there. It was baked into how the system was funded and where it was built. The promise assumed steady money and steady upkeep. The reality delivered neither. Here's why this still matters today. Look at how America handles affordable housing now, and you'll see the lesson written all over it. The government mostly stopped building housing itself. Instead, it now leans heavily on the private sector to produce affordable homes, offering tax breaks, subsidies, and rules rather than pouring concrete directly. Public housing, tax credits for developers, vouchers that help families rent in the regular market. It's a decentralized system where the public side sets the rules and helps with the money, and private builders do most of the actual building. That's crazy, right? The whole approach flipped, in large part because the direct build era taught a hard lesson. It's not enough to build a home. Someone has to keep paying to maintain it year after year, or the promise quietly falls apart. That's the same trap facing every affordable housing plan today, no matter who does the building. So, what did the deal actually deliver? For some families, exactly what it promised: a safe, affordable place when the market offered none. For many others, it delivered a home that was real and loved, sitting inside a system that slowly ran out of money to care for it. The projects weren't a lie, and they weren't a failure of the people who lived in them. They were proof of something harder. That dignity is expensive to maintain, and a home built cheap and then neglected can't hold up a family forever. Jess still wakes at 6. She still makes it work. But whether her kids inherit a stable home or a crumbling one was never really up to her. It was decided in budgets she never saw. If this made you look at those buildings a little differently, stick around, because the way we house each other is one of the oldest money stories there is. Before you go, I want to share something. I make $30 to $50 per day on YouTube thanks to a tool I built called topic2video.com. It took 2 months of posting, but I did it and you can too. I never made money on YouTube before this, so you don't have to be an expert to start. All you need is an idea. Get started for free at topic2video.com today.